Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more of the Great War. We are on to week 26, and this time it is Zeppelins over England. New inventions for the modern war. So, the bombings have truly begun now. Before we dive into the video, though, make sure you go check out the links below in the description box. Would love it if you join the Discord. But yeah, that's that. Let's go ahead and just dive right into the video.
When most people think of the First World War, they think most often of either the Western Front and the trenches and flying aces, and possibly the Italian or Eastern fronts. But the war was...
Ooh. Italian front. Yeah, the Italian front gets I'm trying to remember really any discussion about the Italian front. And I'm going to be honest. I don't think really the Italian front was much discussed in any detail, honestly, until at least I didn't really start paying attention to anything about the Italian front until Battlefield 1 came out. Which that would have been when I was still in, God, it's been that long. I was in high school. Fuck. That was a long time ago. Was I in it? Yeah, I was. Yeah. I think that was my senior year. Math.
by no means confined to mainland Europe. And this week, we really see that it was a world war, with battles taking place on 3 continents.
Simultaneously. Dun, dun, dun.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. When we left off, the huge offensive in Champagne was in full swing, with the French losing at Soissons. In the east, the Russians were still trying to break through the mountains. In the Caucasus, the Turks were licking their wounds and blaming the Armenians, and way down south, South African troops...
Never accept your own failures. Always blame it on a minority group of people. Please do not take that out of context. That was sarcasm. Don't do that. Don't be a dick.
were invading German Southwest Africa. Now, we've seen a few actions in both Southeast and Southwest Africa over the past few months, but there was a change in the nature of the war in Africa this week, following the Battle of Jasin on the 19th in German East Africa. See, last month, the Germans, under General von Lettow-Vorbeck, had successfully defended Tanga, and now von Lettow-Vorbeck headed north along the Indian Ocean coast to take Jasin, which was occupied by the British. He took it with ease, but realized something important. He had far fewer officers and far less ammunition than the enemy, and both were impossible or difficult to replace. So large-scale, direct, and decisive confrontations were no longer really an option for von Lettow-Vorbeck. In future, he would focus on guerrilla operations. And over the next 4 years, with a force that never numbered a whole lot more than 10,000 men, he held in check well over 250,000 British, Belgian, and Portuguese troops, despite exactly 0 assistance from home. Actually, one report says 500,000 enemy troops, but whatever the number, those troops were all prevented from helping the Allies in Europe or the Middle East. Edwin Hoyt, in his book Guerrilla, makes the case that von Lettow-Vorbeck's exploits were the greatest and most successful guerrilla operations in history. He may well be right. And speaking of the Middle East...
Wait, what did he say? I was talking.
...and most successful guerrilla operations in history. He may well be right. And speaking of...
Oh, I think 100% he's right. I don't think we have, at least in terms of a single person, I don't think we have any other person in all of history that has really effectively used guerrilla warfare like that. Now, of course, we have large-scale guerrilla operations by nations as a whole, right? We have the Viet Cong. Then again, that wasn't really under the direction of one person. They had multiple officers leading groups of Viet Cong stuff, right? This is one man controlling one guerrilla army, holding down hundreds of thousands of enemy troops without any assistance from his home government, and he is doing this undefeated for years. I do not believe that there is anyone that comes close, as of now, to that scale in terms of one man, one person acting with military under their command.
Of the Middle East, there was some action there that I didn't have time to mention last week that I will mention now. 11 days ago, British and Indian troops had successfully defended Muscat from forces loyal to the Imam of Oman. Muscat was ruled by the Sultan Taimur, but the British...
That man looks like a model. Could be a model. You know, if he doesn't want to be the Sultan, he has other career options ahead of him.
Who saw it as an important port in the region, financed the Sultan, and in return expected the Sultan to keep other powers out of the area. But both Muscat and Oman had a lucrative rifle trade across the Persian Gulf, and when the British tried to centralize and control this trade in Muscat, it pissed off the Omanis to the point where Turkish and German influence could intercede and convince the Imam to attack. This was just one early round in a long British fight against German and Turkish influence throughout the region. The British would have something very new to contend with this week, though, as it saw the first strategic bombing raid on Britain by Zeppelin. Actually, the Germans had first attempted it January 13th, but the weather ruined that. So on the night of January 19th, 2 Zeppelins, who initially targeted Umberside but were diverted by weather, dropped their bombs on Great Yarmouth, Sheringham, and King's Lynn, killing 4 and injuring 16. Since this was something both new and scary as hell, it prompted all kinds of reactions and conspiracies. Some apparently believed German agents in Britain were using the headlights of their cars to guide the Zeppelins to their targets. And some rumors said the giant airships weren't coming all the way from Germany, but from secret bases in the Lake District.
Oh, God.
They had, in fact, taken off that morning from Fuhlsbüttel. Samuel Alfred Smith had the historical distinction of being the first British citizen to die in aerial bombardment.
Oh.
But while
I don't know if I'd want to die and be remembered for that. Kind of sucks. That kind of does suck.
Britain might be seeing something new, on the Western Front, it was business as usual, and the business was that of killing and dying. The action was mostly in Champagne this week, as the First Battle of Artois had finally ended January 13th. There were French successes at Champagne and French progress all week at Bois des Prêtres. But here's the thing, after all these weeks and like 30 combined attacks and counterattacks so far, French troops had advanced less than a mile. Peter Hart wrote, when describing the wholly attritional nature of the Champagne offensive, quote, "Gradually, the battlefield mutated into a sort of outdoor charnel house littered with human remains. There may not have been enough guns to create a breakthrough, but soldiers on both sides were horrified by the terrible destruction wrought by artillery on the human body." End quote. I'd like to actually throw in another quote from the Western Front here, from further north in Messines, where a young soldier of the German army wrote to his landlord January 20th, quote, "We are still in our old positions and keep annoying the English and French. The weather is miserable and we often spend days on end, knee-deep in water and what is more, under heavy fire. We are greatly looking forward to a brief respite. Let's hope that soon afterward, the whole front will start moving. Things can't go on like this forever." End quote. Signed, Adolf Hitler.
Oh.
I'm sure
You bamboozled us with that quote. I should have expected that.
the 4 years things did go on like that felt more than forever for many. Now Hitler, as many of you know, was Austrian-born, and Austria was making news in the war once again this week. On the Eastern Front, the Russians had occupied the Kirilibaba Pass in Bukovina and continued
Kirilibaba? What kind of name?
advancing there all through the week. However, at the end of the week, the Austro-Hungarian Imperial Army, having been strongly reinforced, managed to retake the pass the 22nd. The following day, Emperor Franz Joseph's army, with German support, would begin its Carpathian offensive, with several aims: to free another Austrian army, well over 100,000 strong, from the fortress of Przemysl, where it had been under siege for 2 months; to drive the Russians out of Galicia and the Carpathian Mountains and prevent any advances toward Hungary, and also to make a strong show of force that would intimidate countries like Italy and Romania, who were so far neutral but were increasingly viewing Austrian military disasters with an eye to joining the Allies and gaining some imperial territory for themselves. The Russians, for their part, weren't just busy this week in the Carpathians. They were on the move on not 1, not 2, but 3 fronts. In the Caucasus, they took nearly 4,000 Turkish prisoners in Kaura-Urgan in a 3-day battle during a snowstorm. This was another total Russian victory over the Ottoman forces. And way up in the northern reaches of the Eastern Front, the Russian army took Skempe on January 20th, forcing the Germans to evacuate. And that's where we stand at the end of the week, with the Russians triumphing on two fronts and doing pretty well on a third. The British are attacked at home, in the Middle East, and in Africa. And on the Western Front, the French were successful, but success meant dying in droves for small temporary gains. This war was 6 months old, but it was already truly a world war. The only continent not yet involved in either men or actual battle was Antarctica. Just this week saw men fighting and dying on 4 fronts in Europe and battles on 2 other continents. It would only grow larger and larger. I usually end these episodes with a talk or a quote about new aspects of the horrors of modern war, which I think is good because however interesting you may find these episodes from an historic standpoint, it's important to remember that this is all about millions of people dying in some of the worst ways imaginable. Today, though, I'll end with a quote, but one that's more about the future than the past. I read this in Martin Gilbert's The First World War. Quote, "It would be quite easy in a short time to fit up a number of steam tractors with small armored shelters in which men and machine guns could be placed, which would be bulletproof. Used at night, they would not be affected by artillery fire to any extent. The Caterpillar system would enable trenches to be crossed quite easily, and the weight of the machine would destroy all barbed wire entanglements." End quote.
First tank.
This letter was pretty much the first step in the evolution of the tank. It was to Herbert Asquith, British Prime Minister. It was signed Winston Churchill. Churchill was one of those larger-than-life historical figures, and we have a whole new format of episodes to document those important individuals.
And again, would like to preface, or not preface, state that we'll probably get to those kind of videos after we finish this main series. So that's a couple of years down the line. Gonna be a while. But yeah, don't want to. Already doing plenty of, I think, Great War channel content reactions here. Don't think we need to flood. I don't think I need to flood you guys with more of it. So I'm gonna hold off on their exterior videos that deal with the Great War and get back to those at a future point. But that is Zeppelins over England, New Inventions for the Modern War. Great War, Week 26. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.